All right, so this is the last video that's going to go along with the 5.3b notes, okay? We graphed linear functions using a table of values. Okay, the graph was a line. We graphed quadratic functions using a table of values. The graph was this U-shaped graph called a parabola. And now we're going to graph absolute value functions using a table of values, okay? And these graphs should be V-shaped. They can open up or they can open down, just like the parabolas, okay? So we know absolute value, remember that's a distance from zero, so absolute value has to be positive because it's a distance. Okay, so we need to evaluate that accordingly. I'm going to use the same x values I've used a long time now, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. If these don't give you the V shape that you're looking for, then you need to keep plotting points until you get that V shape, okay? But for now, I think these are going to be good enough for this function. So y equals absolute value of x plus 1. So we want to plug in -2. So absolute value of -2 is +2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So -2, comma 3. -1. So absolute value of -1 is +1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So -1, comma 2. Let's plug in 0. So I'm just going to get 0 plus 1, which is 1. So 0, comma 1. Let's plug in +1. And that's going to be just like when we plugged in -1 up here. We're going to get +2. So 1, comma 2. And when I plug in 2, I get 2 plus 1, which is 3. So 2, comma 3. So you can see the pattern here, and this is going to be the vertex. This is the low point, just like we talked about with the parabolas. This will be called the vertex or the minimum value here of this function, okay? So let's go graph that one real quick. All right, so the graph of this function, this absolute value function, we had a table of values. We had -2, comma 3. We had -1, comma 2. We had 0, comma 1. We had 1, comma 2, and we had 2, comma 3. So you can see the V shape there. It's not like the parabola that had a more of a U shape. So we're just going to continue this that direction, and we're going to continue this that direction. Okay, so that's going to be the graph of y equals the absolute value of x plus 1. Okay, let's go back and do problem 8, and then we'll be done with these notes. All right, so problem number 8 here, y equals 2 times the absolute value of x minus 3 minus 2, okay? Notice I've changed my x values here, and you're going to see why that's the case here in just a second. If you decided to try this problem before watching the video and you use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, you're not going to see the V shape. It's actually going to look like a line, okay? And you know an absolute value function has to be V-shaped, so you would have had to continue going, okay? So let's plug in 1. We got to use order of operations here, so I have to do absolute value first. So I'm like grouping symbols, okay? So 1 minus 3 is -2. The absolute value of that -2 is +2, times this 2 out front is 4, and then minus this 2, so 4 minus 2 is +2. So 1, comma 2. When I plug in 2, I get a -1 inside the absolute value. Evaluate that, you get +1 times 2 is 2. Minus this 2 is 0, okay? So 2, comma 0. When I plug in 3, that's going to give me a 0 here. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus that 2 is -2, okay? Let's plug in 4. Order of operations, 4 minus 3 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is still 1. Times 2 is 2. Minus 2 is 0. And finally, let's plug in 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. Absolute value of that is +2. Times this 2 is 4, minus this 2 is 2, okay? So we get 5, comma 2. Again, you can see the V shape here. It'll become more clear when we graph this, but this would be the vertex. 3, -2 would be the vertex, and this one's going to open up, okay? So let's go graph that one now. So let's plot these points that we just put in our table of values. We had a point at 1, comma 2. We had a point at 2, comma 0. Oops, excuse me. That's not 1, comma 2. 1, comma 2 is here, okay? 2, comma 0 was next. 3, -2 was the vertex. 4, comma 0, and then 5, comma 2. Again, you can see the V shape. It's not U shape, it's V shape. So that's going to be the graph going up and to the right, and then the graph going up and to the left, okay? So this is the graph of y equals 2 times the absolute value of x minus 3 minus 2, okay? Good job.